Yo, what's good YouTube? It's boardzy, and this is going to be the long-awaited review of the new glorious wireless mice, the Model D- wireless and the Model O- wireless. Obviously, every reviewer and their mom has already reviewed these. I was just patiently waiting on the glorious pre-orders to ship. They arrived. I have the mice, gonna review the mice, the regular. But yeah, since this is a two mouse review, first I'm going to focus on the Model O- wireless, which is the mouse I wound up liking less. You can see it here. This is a very tiny, low profile mouse. If you have hands as big as mine, 21 by 11, or really just any hands over 20 centimeters by 10 centimeters, the only grip that's going to be viable is fingertip. And this is still a very narrow, small mouse. You can see that my thumb barely even fits on the left side of it. Definitely a small mouse. For me, I need to claw grip in order to have stability and hit the side buttons, and on this mouse, that is just a nightmare for getting a consistent grip, at least with my hand size. I'm sure people with smaller hands will have a better time with this mouse, but for me, it just was not working in that regard with the shape. And this is not a problem with me not being able to use small mice. There are plenty of small mice that I like and am able to grip well, but the O- wireless is just too flat. You can see the profile compared to the Starlight and the Hot ES. And yeah, it's just a low profile mouse that does not work for me, but it could work for other people. The overall quality of mine is fucking spectacular. I actually dropped mine from the height of my desk. You can see a few of these little scuff marks, and there is not a single issue with the build that arises from that. If I did that with my old Model O wireless, wow, it would have been a nightmare. There's also no issues with the clicks in terms of like wobble, pre-travel, post-travel. Glorious really has stepped up the build quality. Like, it did take them long enough, but at least now it seems to be really fucking solid on my O- wireless, my D- wireless, and the Model D. So maybe they'll even update the Model O wireless to have the same features and quality updates. But that's just something I wanted to mention because seriously, after having issues with every single glorious mouse for like almost 2 years, they actually seem to solve those issues. But getting back to the Model O- wireless, I do have one small issue with it, and it is the side button. I don't know, glorious, this side button design, they just can't fucking get it right with the Model O series. That's really the only thing to mention, though. Just a ton of play on the mouse 4 or mouse 5, and it feels very loose. You will feel the pre-travel as well. So the side button quality isn't great. Kind of just talked about the quality, forgetting that there was that issue. But truly, aside from that, I don't have a single thing to bring up regarding quality on either of these mice. And no issues have come to the Model D wireless since the first review. So build quality, surprising shit. The clicks are the same on both of these mice, the glorious Kale 8.0s. They don't say exactly what they are, but they're switches designed with Kale, and they last up to 80 million clicks, probably fucking Kale 8.0s. So it's the same clicks they rolled out with the Model D wireless, and just not too much to say about them. They're nothing game-changing. They definitely feel firmer and snappier in the implementation with the Model O- wireless. They do feel slightly dull with the Model D-, but no issues in game. These are still easy to spam. They don't take an outrageous amount of actuation force. I would say they're on the lighter side, actually, and just a solid click with no quality issues to date. And the last thing I'm going to focus on with the O- wireless before moving to the D- is the weight of this mouse. It was 64 grams, and for a primarily fingertip mouse, it doesn't really feel like a feather while you're moving it around, but it's definitely not heavy by any stretch of the imagination. You can see that it's balanced well, but since this mouse is so small, it just has that dense feeling. But it's still an easy mouse to move around and control. It just was not viable for my main grip style, and I will honestly probably never touch this mouse again after this review. Maybe I could even give it away. Wow, wait, stay tuned for the 100K giveaway. But yeah, that was really all I have to say about the O- wireless. It was nothing that I would like to use long term. It was too small. I felt like I was missing shots because I just didn't have a consistent grip of it. And yeah, overall, it wasn't the mouse for me. The other features like the G skates, the sensors, the scroll wheel, it's not worth talking about. Everybody fucking knows. Well, I guess the sensor is probably worth talking about. It is, what do they call it? The BAMF sensor. It's a 3370. The battery drains really fucking fast. That's something that won't change with these glorious mice. But getting back to the actual performance of the sensor, or at least what I could notice without running any objective tests, is that it feels up to par in game. My aim doesn't seem to suffer from using wireless glorious mice. Like one mouse I was comparing the D- wireless to is the Zowie EC3C, and there really just wasn't any noticeable difference in the input between the wired and wireless. But call me schizophrenic, call me what you want, it just doesn't feel as perfect as the Logitech wireless. When I switch off a glorious mouse and go to a mouse with Logitech Hero 25K, it just doesn't, it feels like it's running a lower pulling rate. It feels like a smoother, more clear picture when I'm moving around a Logitech mouse. It's hard to explain, and I don't think it's really a game-changing difference. You can easily adjust to these mice, but once you notice it, it's hard to unnotice, I would say. But yeah, that's my completely anecdotal sensor rant over. Now it's time to talk about the Model D- wireless, which is definitely the mouse I enjoyed more out of the bunch. If you watched my Model D wireless review, my main complaint was the size of it. It's just a humongous mouse, and it's mainly for palm grip. If you claw grip, even with really large hands, it just still feels large. So the Model D- is definitely a welcomed downsize. This mouse weighs in at 66 grams versus 69, so it is slightly lighter. It feels like a good weight in hand. I mentioned before I was comparing this to the EC3C, the Pulsar X Lite, and I definitely think that the D- wireless is the best wireless small to medium sized ergo, but in general there still are wired options that I think would be better. But for the price of $80, this is a good lightweight ergo mouse. Here you can look at the shape compared to some other ergos. This is obviously an EC clone with the closest dimensions to the EC2. I believe this is an EC3C. I am waiting on an EC2 at the moment. But yeah, it's a very safe shape that has been tried and copied by a lot of other companies. But I think Glorious really does have the most well-rounded version of an EC clone. There are no holes on the side, which is personally a thing I think it gets right over, what's this brand? Pulsar, holy shit. Also, the side buttons, I mentioned that they really weren't great on the O- wireless, but on the D-, it is a completely different story. They're very clicky, well-tensioned, no issues with play, pre-travel, post-travel, and they are positioned well. I think that is a pretty big improvement over the subpar feeling buttons on the X Lite wireless. But if you are willing to consider wired Zowie mice, I think those will overall be a higher quality experience than Glorious at the end of the day. But if you are limiting your search to wireless mice, I don't think you'll have many complaints with the D- wireless, especially if the quality of your copy feels the same as mine does. In terms of shape, this really is safe for all three grip styles with me, at least. I could fingertip it. I would never really want to fingertip a ergo, but it works for that. With claw grip, it's a much more natural and comfortable feeling shape than the D, the standard D shape, which is fucking huge. Haha, the D is huge. Please like my video. And even for redacted grip, which is basically just relaxed fingertip, this mouse is still big and wide enough to be comfortable without totally engulfing my palm and just hand in the mouse like the Model D does. So I would say that the D- wireless is the best overall experience I have had with a Glorious mouse. And like I mentioned before, there's very little to complain about. This is a safe shape. It's a safe weight. I don't have any issues with the quality of the shell, any of the buttons. The wireless performs well. Competitively priced. This is all in all a good mouse. I personally just can't give it the seal of approval. Well, I obviously could, but I just don't feel like it goes above and beyond, really. I don't feel like I was playing exceptionally with it. It's a bit hard to explain, but every aspect of this mouse just feels above average, but not really great. And I know that is just like wishy-washy language, but my experience with this mouse just wasn't in that like best tier of mice. But still, if you're looking for a mouse that isn't at an outrageous price point, a safe ergo shape, then I think this might be what you're looking for. One thing to mention is that the button height is pretty high, so if you're ultra low button height pilled, I think you're more precise with that. That is something I mentioned. I did notice it a bit. But yeah, all in all, this was a much better mouse to me than the O- wireless was. But I'm sure other people would have the exact opposite experience, which just shows at the end of the day, mice are all preference. Am I right? And that's going to be all for this video, taking a look at the newest wireless mice from Glorious. It is nice to see them actually improving the builds of the mice. One thing I want to see them work on is the battery life, though, because with the RGB, even on 50%, these die in 2 to 3 days of use, which is just, I don't know, I feel like it should definitely be improved. They list it lasts at 71 hours with no RGB. But yeah, these aren't elite in terms of battery life. It is USB-C, though. God bless. And yeah, I don't have anything else to say aside from Glorious should probably start making new shapes. There are plenty of shapes out there to copy. They don't even have to think too hard. I'll do it for you. Glorious, make a Viper Mini, clone, wireless. Wow, sell it for cheaper and better than Ponage, and wow, it should fucking work for them at this point. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, like and sub. Peace.